So just like that with Wargaming, I thought I was out, and then I'm pulled right back in. Pacific Rim Extinction. Now, I'd been following this release for a little while. I'm excited. Wave 1, the core, and some of the additional pack-ins have been released. It's out there in the wild. And in picking it up, I wasn't looking for another wargaming system, but for me, it's the narrative. The chance to come together with some friends, sit down, roll some dice. We're going to try and win. We're going to do it. We're going to pull out some tactics. But ultimately, trying to create a narrative, trying to create something on the tabletop, make some really good use of our gaming time together, and literally build those memories on there. So the narrative, the presentation, that's very important for me. Again, not saying that rules aren't important, but I can overlook a little swinginess in the rules or how things kind of work out if it's fun, if it's fun to play. And the first thing I noticed with Extinction was the shelf presence is fantastic. I mean, the 2 miniatures, epic scale, fully painted, the box, some thick cardboard, you flip it over, a lot of great pack-ins on there. Essentially something very, very unique, and this is going to kind of be a side question, starter sets for today. Board games, miniature games, bringing them up to the here and now of today versus maybe starter sets in the 90s or later where it's like, here's a couple of miniatures and go to town. Essentially, Pacific Rim really giving you everything in a starter set and bridging the board game to war game gap, allowing you to sit down and play out of the box. But we're going to look at that, but that ties in. So the first thing is I have to check out the miniatures. That's everything. And pre-paint is really interesting. Traditionally, a wargaming system, the barrier to entry is you have to build and paint the miniatures. And that's an important part of the hobby. Absolutely, it's an important part of the hobby on there. Warhammer 40,000, which I enjoy, you're going to be spending time building and painting. But from the perspective of playing, you have to move through that first. And if we look at something like X-Wing miniatures, part of the strength of that, the momentum, yes, it's the Star Wars IP, but it's literally plug and play. You pop out the ships, you put them on a stand, you're ready to go. Something like Wings of Glory, World War I, aerial combat game. I love that because the miniatures are pre-painted, ready to go. Pacific Rim, they're painted, but the level of detail, the molds are fantastic. Very, very faint mold lines on there. And actual metallic paints, actual highlights, some dry brushing. The striping on the Jaeger mechs is actual striping, no decals on there. I mean, really, really fantastic. I popped these miniatures out and easily tabletop quality. Easily tabletop quality if you were going to paint it on your own. And if you had a desire to take it to that next level, a couple of brush strokes ready to go. I was really, really impressed. This was an example of something 2019, 2020, whatever we're moving into. This is a step above pre-painted. Fantastic. So from that perspective of coming into the miniatures game, you don't have to paint anything on there. It's literally plug and play. And the scale, it's got some bite to it. It's heroic scale. It's bigger than most miniature game systems. I had to do a size comparison with my Ultramarine on there. 40K, the level of detail and quality of the miniatures is great. These dwarf Space Marines, but they should. It's a bigger scale. So I pulled out my old school Mark I Cornate Demon Prince on there, and they're going to give him a run for the money. So the epic scale works really well before you even get it onto the tabletop. It's just, they're big, they're presentable, they look fantastic. So then we go through the rest of the box. I went right to the miniatures. That's how it is, checking it out. The rest of the box has some rules, has some cards. The fit and finish of the cards and the play mats are texturized, heavier than normal. That's a good sign. I'm probably going to sleeve them anyway, just because that's just how my mind is on there. But I could easily see not sleeving them, meaning they're going to hold up to the wear and tear. So that's a big plus too. And of course, we have a stack of cardboard in there, counters, tokens, terrain, a couple of 3D buildings, which I thought was really nice. Often what we also see in starter sets for war games is they might give you some terrain. They're going to give you the tokens and stuff like that. But the terrain is 2D. It's nice to have, it's cardboard, but it's kind of like laser cut cardboard that you could build a couple of 3D buildings to kind of have some dimension. I mean, we've got these amazing miniatures, and we've got a couple of 3D buildings for the battlefield. So literally a battlefield in the box. And then there's a playmat. The playmat to kind of fold out and either be an underwater rift or a broken city. And my thought on this was, I'd like to see more miniature gaming systems do this, because that's a big kind of what if, having an actual tabletop to play on. For some systems, it's a grass map. For some systems, it might be texturized. This has the fit, the form, the function. It's going to work. So literally in the box, everything in the presentation. Fully painted miniatures, heroic scale. We've got pack-in cardboard, counters, some buildings to get you started, the game mat, and, of course, the rules. We're going to jump into the rules a little bit more. I've got a couple of games that I played. I'm having some friends over. We're going to blow some stuff up, roll some dice. It's an interesting hybrid system, and this is what has me intrigued in terms of game design. There's been, over the years, as war games have developed, there's been this idea of just kind of dumping old school stuff. I mean, if we look at something like Warhammer 40K, and you guys know I love 40K, the base mechanics, the DNA, the skeletal structure of Warhammer 40,000 is Rogue Trader from the 80s. And that rule set is fantastic. I love it. I love 40K. But its limitations is in a D6 based system. You roll a lot of D6 dice out there. Now, 8th edition, I'm sure 9th edition, 10th edition, we have exploding dice, we have chain dice. There are ways to manipulate a D6, like if you get a 6, roll another D6, to essentially give you more of a spread. The idea behind dice in wargaming, besides just being a random element generator, is to simulate the fog of war. You fire off that missile, you might need a 6 and then another 6 to blow something up. It's probably not going to happen, but it could. So it interjects the what if into there. So I really like dice-based systems. But on the opposite side, what we've seen with a lot of war games now is what I call the Mage Knight effect. We're going to give you a deck of cards that's going to have all your powers at all times, and you play those cards to activate. So there's no what if, there's no chance, there's no maybe your tactics will work or not. Essentially, you're planning things out like clockwork, complete, total hand management. And that's has some interesting designs in it also. Playing war games without any dice. So we have complete swingy, roll lots of dice, and on the opposite end, you control absolutely everything on there. Pacific Rim is kind of in the middle, and I'm intrigued by it, and I'm really liking what I see, because it seems like it has retained the fun, at least from my perspective, the fun of rolling lots of dice. There's something kinetic about picking up a bunch of dice. You make it base to base. You're going to punch and use your plasma caster. You pick up a lot of dice. You roll them. And I find as I'm rolling these dice, the what if. This is the moment for glory on here. This is the moment. And you cast the dice out. They settle. You count them up. Your opponent looks at them. Your opponent counts them up for the block. And you have a resolution. It's like every turn is a cliffhanger, as opposed to, okay, I play this card. You activate, I counter, you play this card. I mean, it's a different feeling. So we have the Dice Fest in Pacific Rim, but you also have with your Kaiju and your Jaeger mechs a hand of cards, a deck of cards that not only represent damage, but represent the unique abilities of each machine or each monster on there. So I feel like it's a update and a blending of the tried and true dice that works with some amazing refinements, and yet mini hand management. It's not going to get out of control, But I'm going to have some choices based on what I can activate on there, along with a very, very unique wound system, because you literally take damage and start shutting down on there. And it plays very, very fast. The game plays very, very fast. How is it going to scale? Because, again, we only have Wave 1 right now, but I'm already thinking, like, if there's a total of about 8 or 10 kaiju and Jaegers for each side, like, we have to do like 10 on 10 battles. We need to do like major city stomping, destroying battles on there. With that, the game seems to scale up pretty fast, and we'll see how that works out. I am really excited. I am really pumped, because this is an out-of-the-box, plug-and-play, miniatures type game. I see the approach if you're casual to wargaming. Maybe you're primarily a board gamer. You're looking to jump into miniature wargaming. Very easy, very quick to pick up, and good tactical depth. If you are a really hardcore, like, look, Fritz, I only play Chain of Command, I only play historicals, it's got to be the real deal, this is a little bit lighter, but it still has tactical bite, and the fun factor just to roll some dice, blow stuff up in that narrative, in that presentation. I mean, who doesn't want to pilot a massive mech? Who doesn't want to make that link to the mind of the kaiju and control it and, like, just smash things? So I feel like I'm writing a movie script, or I feel like I'm in some sort of role-playing RPG narrative. Future projects, because my mind is already going. We've got to review the various kaiju and Jaeger. We got to look at some tactics. We got to look at some rules. I'm going to put up a walkthrough of the different turns of the game on there. The rule book is pretty solid, though. I have to say, it walks you through pretty well on it. Usual couple of questions here and there that'll easily resolve as you go through the game. Not a massive learning curve. But this setup is ready for some amazing terrain. I can't stress enough how fantastic the miniatures look. I want to model up, and I'm going to model up some 3D buildings, some 3D rubble piles. There's tokens that are like cars and ships and large kind of pieces that you could pick up and use as weapons on there. I want to model some of those up to physically pick up. So there's a lot that, while it's completely functional and looks great out of the box, as a war gamer, as a miniature gamer, as your skills evolve and you want to upgrade some of the pieces, we can just focus on the terrain. The Jaegers, the kaiju, they're done. They're ready to go, and that helps that motivation on there. Definitely more to come. Definitely more to come. It wasn't my plan, but a very, very interesting and unique game out there, and already a couple of battles in, a lot of fun.